Come into this circle of community. Come in to this sacred space. Be not tentative. Bring your whole self. Bring the joy that makes your heart sing. Bring your kindness and your compassion. Also, bring your sorrow, your pain. Bring your brokenness and your disappointments. Spirit of love and mystery, help us to recognize the spark of the divine that resides in each of us. May we know the joy of wholeness. May we know the joy of being together.
You want to come forward? Oh my gosh, there's like a sea of people back there. Any young people want to come forward? Young at heart, never want to grow up people? You can come on forward. We're going to have a time for joy and sorrow. You want to come up? You want to come sit up here? And parents can come, adults can come. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. It's so much easier to see up here. Oh my gosh, you're very excited. There's some excitement right here. But we're gonna open it up to the community. Would anyone like to open up the Wonder Box? This is the Wonder Box. Who has not opened it up yet? Has anyone not opened the Wonder Box that would like to? Anyone want to? You want to open it? Okay, come on out. We'll come around this way. Yeah, I know. There we go. Can you flip this up here? This is the Wonder Box. Yep. Lift it really hard. Oh, great. Thank you. And then we're going to lift this here. Can you lift it up? You want to see what's in there? Do you want to get it out? Oh, turn around. Show what that is. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Thank you for... all the kids want to help? Okay. What is that? What is that? It's a scarf. It is very scarfy. It could fold around a couple times. It also looks like something else I might be wearing. It's kind of a word we might not use in our everyday. Anyone? A stole, but I did not steal it. I did not workshop that one with my wife. She would have denied use of that. I'll hold it. Okay, you can go sit down. So this is the stole, okay? This is a stole. And it's something that I wear, and it doesn't make me any more beautiful or sacred or having a spark of the divine as you, but it's something that signifies my identity as an ordained minister. Okay? And so I wear these to kind of give that kind of clue. But you all wear tons of other clothing, and all of those kind of house the sacredness and the spark of the divine that is you. Did you know that? That you have a spark of the divine within you? I said those words earlier. Chris said something very similar in her words. So there's a little something, a little poem, part of a poem that I want to teach you. Okay? It goes like this. Joy and woe are woven fine. Can you say that? Joy and woe are woven fine. A clothing for the soul divine. A clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine, runs a joy of silken twine. Runs a joy of silken twine. It is right, it should be so. It is right, it should be so. We were made for joy and woe. We were made for joy and woe. And when this we rightly know, safely through the world we'll go. I really love those words. It's a part of a poem by William Blake, and it kind of reminds me that have any of you ever done any crocheting or this kind of stuff, whatever this is? Sewing, quilting, yes, excellent. Did you know that this is a lot of little tiny pieces in there? Can you see them? They're so small. Here, you can pass it around. There's just so little money. And some of them go this way, and some of them go this way. And what if, just saying, our lives are filled with a little bit of those threads of joy and woe? What's another way of woe? What's another word for woe? Kind of like sadness, right? Sorrow, right? And so what if we just tried to knit something only with these kind of up threads? Oh, that would be an interesting outfit. Yeah. How do I know so many fancy words? That's really nice. Well, I probably know too many, and I probably should, do you mean like poetry as well? Or just any words? Long words, I know. It's sort of something I'm trying to unlearn a little bit. The seminary sort of really pushes it in there, but some of it is just what I spend my time with, and I'm trying to spend my time more with people who have a lot of different kinds of words and lived experiences. But with this kind of sewing and stitching and other things, we kind of need the up and down threads, and we also need the over threads, because what does it do? It kind of like weaves in and out. We did that right here with this project, right? That Chris did on her loom a few months back. Remember that, when Chris used her loom? That was so cool. And so sometimes sorrow, sadness, we wish was not as much a part of our lives. And I agree. I don't wish it on anybody, but I embrace you who experience sorrow. How many of you have experienced sorrow in the last week, or sadness in the last week? It's okay. And so I want this to be a place where you can come with your sadness and not say, hey, sad people, go in the back, and then the joyful people can be up front. I want the joyful people and the sad people to come in together, because you know what? I forgot about this poem. Joy and woe are woven fine. So the sad people in the back, how many of those sad people also experienced some kind of joy this week? A moment of joy, a small kindness or something like that, right? Yeah, isn't that beautiful? So you can get a little bit of both. So even if you kind of look at someone, they're really smiley, that means they don't know what sadness means. Or you see someone else who looks really sad, they don't know what joy means. They probably got a little bit of it mixed in there, all right? So I cannot wait to see all the joys and sorrows that we're going to experience and hold one another in today and in the weeks to come. I'm super excited that we have so many kids here and some of the cool kids in the back. And we're going to have some fun learning about superheroes, learning about the superhero within us and among us. And I'm just really glad to see all these familiar and new faces as well. So let's sing you out to your classes, if you'll join me.
Each week, except during July, we celebrate the ritual of joys and sorrows. We have been doing so for years. Was it missed during July? The Sunday service team thought it might be. It was very easy after the projector malfunctioned to invite you to light a candle on your own when we moved here in the sanctuary. And a few people did. On regular Sundays, if we have those here, on regular Sundays, when we celebrate this ritual together, some people light a candle every Sunday. I'm sure that some seldom, if ever, do. And most of us are probably somewhere in between. Last Sunday, I couldn't be here, so I didn't see the ritual reactivated. I wonder how you felt about it. Why do we celebrate joys and sorrows? What does this do for us? Likely you have thoughts about this, and I'm curious. I would love to hear your thoughts during coffee. Here's some of my thoughts. The joys and sorrow ritual gives us time to stop everything else and reflect on the question, how is it going with me, really? How was my week, my interactions, and my reactions? What makes me happy? Do I need to make any changes, any adjustments? Am I in right relationship with others and with that which I feel is important, that some people call the sacred? In our busy lives, we don't always have a chance or make a chance to do that reflection. This ritual gives us a chance to share our lives. Some churches do the ritual, but the congregants don't speak, probably as a time management strategy. Here, we are invited to speak, and I'm always grateful to hear it from the horse's mouth. I think the sharing is important in a community. We can be open, we can trust, we can practice vulnerability. There is a saying, Google says it is a Swedish proverb. Judson might know. The idea is that a sorrow is diminished when it is shared, and a joy is amplified when it is shared. And sharing is a way to make that happen. Now, sharing is also good for the listeners. We can make stronger connections and practice empathy. Often, there is a burst of spontaneous applause when a joy is shared. I have seen people talking quietly during coffee hour with the ones who share sad news. And I know that there's sometimes a follow-up during the week, a card in the mail, a phone call, a coffee date, something. We have to pay attention, though. One Sunday, a young woman who had attended a few times shared news that was obviously joyous to her. She didn't get the response that she expected. I'm guessing our assumptions got in the way, or maybe we just weren't as open that day as we think we are. Maybe we were just surprised and unsure what to do with her news. And maybe it was about her. Maybe, she didn't have a realistic expectation. She said, though, I thought you'd be happy for me. And I don't think she's been back. To me, this ritual is as close as we get to prayer. Nick has called the Spirit of Life, that song, a prayer. And I agree. And of course, it's okay to reframe the concept of prayer and what that word means. It's vocabulary. When I play the song on the piano here on Sunday mornings, I try not to improvise or mess around with it too much for those who are singing it as a prayer. Some mornings, I just kind of lay back and chord it and listen to y'all sing. It sounds wonderful. Some people might say it sounds heavenly. My heart swells. Joys and sorrow are part of life. So I'm trying to learn this song by John Denver. It goes something like this. All this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain. Such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love. We can't avoid the joys and sorrows of life. They are part of life, part of us. We can choose how we recognize and celebrate them, the sorrows as well as the joys. The Sunday service team would love to hear your thoughts. Our reading this morning is an excerpt from No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering by Thich Nhat Hanh. Both suffering and happiness are of an organic nature, which means they are both transitory. They are always changing. The flower, when it wilts, becomes the compost. The compost can help grow a flower again. Happiness is also organic and impermanent by nature. It can become suffering, and suffering can become happiness again. In each of our Plum Village practice centers around the world, we have a lotus pond. Everyone knows we need to have mud for lotuses to grow. The mud doesn't smell so good, but the lotus flower smells very good. If you don't have mud, the lotus won't manifest. You can't grow lotus flowers on marble. Without mud, there can be no lotus. It is possible, of course, to get stuck in the mud of life. It's easy enough to notice mud all over you at times. The hardest thing to practice is not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by despair. When you're overwhelmed by despair, all you can see is suffering everywhere you look. You feel as if the worst thing is happening to you. But we must remember that suffering is a kind of mud that we need in order to generate joy and happiness. Without suffering, there is no happiness. So we shouldn't discriminate against the mud. We have to learn to embrace and cradle our own suffering and the suffering of the world with a lot of tenderness.
I appreciate the curiosity, care, and wisdom that Chris brought to her reflection this morning. Wasn't that nice? She posed a very thoughtful question. Why do we celebrate joys and sorrows? It's thoughtful because there are many ways to answer this question. It is also thoughtful, as in considerate, since those who are newer to this community may be asking the very same question. And to be honest, there may be some of you who've been coming for decades who even still ask the question now and then. Here's the thing. Sometimes the questions that are right before us are the hardest and the most neglected, and yet the most important questions to be asked. Thus, finally, perhaps for the first time after all these years, we are getting down into the mud and wrestling with this question. Here's the thing about joys and sorrows, or anything we do most Sundays at UUCCI. Its purpose and meaning is partially held by the collective, by all of us. But primarily, it's held by you, the individual. Therefore, what purpose you ascribe to or meaning you derive from this weekly practice is going to be inherently different than the person next to you, because you are inherently different than the person next to you. While you are both bearers of light and experience the world different or similar in certain ways, you also experience the world differently. And how you experience this ritual will be determined by your unique journey through life. With that said, Chris names a few reasons I expect overlap and resonated with some of your ways of thinking of this portion of our service. She sees it from two angles, those who share and those who listen. In her words, quote, "The ritual gives us a chance to share our lives. The idea is that a sorrow shared is diminished and a joy shared is amplified. We become part of each other's lives." It's a great way to think about it. A sorrow shared is diminished and a joy shared is amplified, and in so doing, we become a part of each other's lives. This brings us to the receiver of joys and sorrows, all of us. Chris went on to say, the sharing is also good for the listeners. We can make stronger connections and practice empathy. Often there is a burst of spontaneous applause when a joy is shared. I've seen people talking quietly during coffee hour with the ones who share sad news. And I know there is sometimes follow-up during the week, a card in the mail, or a phone call, or a coffee date. Chris is tapping into something many of you have shared about the value you see in this time of the service. By acknowledging the "it takes two to tango" philosophy, she incidentally illustrates the meaningful words from the hymn that goes, and she has sung before, "From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live." It's a great song, and you can feel it when we do this ritual. But let's go further. Let's dig deeper into the mud. Here's an interesting wrench that has me scratching my head. When I was a newer minister, let's say a decade or so ago, the company line, so to speak, from my colleagues was that the ritual of joys and sorrows should be avoided like the plague. That, quote, if you don't have it in your Sunday services, give thanks and don't add it. And if you do have it, find a way to do away with it, end quote. Now, some of this critique is based on congregational culture and size, practicality and formality of our services, etc., that vary widely among the 1,000 Unitarian Universalist congregations in the country. UUCCI is, for example, a smaller congregation, and it was lay-led for over 20 years, and generally more humanistic and, for lack of a better term, more down-to-earth than some other congregations in our movement, such as our community. As such, our community has always seemed more comfortable with this ritual than perhaps the one I attended for my internship as an aspiring minister in St. Paul, which is over 100 years old as a congregation and close to 1,000 adult members. It also has an organ for organ lovers here. But culture and demographics aside, another reason Joys and Sorrows get mixed reviews is that the ritual can be highly unpredictable. We like to predict what's going to happen, especially as ministers. And that's part of that thing we're trying to unravel a little bit with whiteness or control, patriarchy, things like that, to let go. But it is a highly unpredictable ritual based that on any given week, who might come forward, who might share something, what might be shared before or after. It's open to a lot of different factors. Chris alluded to this in her reflection as well. We have to be careful, she said. One Sunday, a young woman who had attended a few times shared news that was obviously joyous to her. She didn't get the response that she expected. I'm guessing our assumptions got in the way, or maybe we weren't as open that day as we think we are. Maybe we were just surprised and unsure what to do with this news, or maybe it was really about her expectations. She said, "I thought she'd be happy for me. I don't think she's been back." That's a hard story to share, and I'm glad you did, Chris, because it highlights that it is vulnerable to share our joys and our sorrows. Not just our sorrows, but our joys too. And it is vulnerable to just come up here and to light a candle, even if you don't say anything aloud, which is, of course, what the majority of you who do come up do. You light a candle and you go back to your seat. On top of that, there are all these differing experiences for those of you who don't get up at all to light a candle, but participate in this ritual by holding space where joy and sorrow and community meet and sitting in that sacred silence. Some may be overwhelmed and unnerved by the silence or feel like it can run on too long, or any number of feelings, and those are okay. Others may feel comforted and held by the weekly reminder that we are not alone. I suppose what I am trying to say is that what I began with, which is that there is no one way to understand the purpose and meaning of this practice. What I can do is share what I get out of it. After all, I've participated in this ritual hundreds of times over our 8 years together, and countless more throughout my life as a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. Additionally, as the one who has to preside over this ritual, I've had a lot of time to consider why we do it, and why do we do it every week, and what really happens when we do it. So this is what I really think. Lighting candles to acknowledge the joys and sorrows of our own hearts, this community, and of the world is an act of remembering that we are human and that we are still alive, that we feel and bleed, that we weep, and we shout for joy, that these are ways of the living. The lighting of the candles and the witnessing of such acts are not only human acts, but revolutionary acts of love in the face of death and despair that swirl around us in this world. Honoring our humanness cultivates our humaneness, and in turn emboldens our commitment to celebrate love and work for justice. At its best, this ritual is not an act of navel-gazing or about any one joy or sorrow or candle alone. It is about the collective light shone through our weekly gathering, one of many beacons kindled across this nation, all reminders that we need to stick together in this life. In this regard, I embrace it all, your joys and your sorrows, for together they illuminate our path forward as a community. Some of you may bristle a little with that last statement, that I embrace it all, your joys and your sorrows. Wouldn't it be better if we only embraced our joys and sort of wished away our sorrows? Why embrace that which we wish did not exist? I embrace your sorrows because you are inextricable from them, just as you are with your joys. It's like the words of James Blake, who inspired the title of the sermon. Blake wrote in his poem, Auguries of Innocence, "Joy and woe are woven fine, a clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy of silken twine." I first learned these words when I was serving the UU Church of Greater Lansing in Michigan as an unofficial intern of sorts while Hattie was in law school about a decade ago. We'd say these words each and every week prior to the start of this portion of the service, along with the words that also are from Blake's poem. It is right, it should be so, we were made for joy and woe, and when this we rightly know, safely through the world we go. Reciting those week after week for 3 years instilled in me not just an appreciation for joys and sorrows, but an embrace of our multitudes within, among, and beyond us. Blake's words helped me to come to understand that we can no more avoid sorrow in this life as we can weave with only vertical or horizontal threads. We have both. We weave both. We thus can choose to embrace both, and therefore all of who we are and all of what this world consists of, namely tapestries of joy and sorrow, or we can live in innocence, in ignorance. Another influential figure of my understanding of these issues is from the late Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who wrote prolifically on the subject of suffering. In his quintessential text, No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering, little book, really easy, he adds a new layer to our reflection this morning. Using the metaphor of the lotus flower, which requires mud in order to bloom, Thich Nhat Hanh shares that the two are interdependent. While he uses the term happiness and suffering rather than joy and sorrow, his argument may be hard for some of us to accept. That is due to a lot of factors as well, including our lived experiences with them. Some of us, after all, are more familiar with happiness rather than suffering, and vice versa. And because we are predominantly shaped by a Western worldview, which on the whole has a different understanding or tolerance of an approach to these topics, it can be difficult. The trap occurs, though, when, in Thich Nhat Hanh's words, we get stuck in the mud. He suggests, quote, "It's easy enough to notice mud all over you at times. The hardest thing to practice is not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by despair. When you're overwhelmed by despair, all you can see is suffering everywhere you look. You feel as if the worst thing is happening to you," end quote. As Chris said, the embracing of our sorrows through lighting candles diminishes suffering. Perhaps in a way, this is metaphorically like sharing them helps to break them down or begin the decomposition of the sorrow we hold or are witnessing in this world. In our lighting of candles, we are making fresh mud for the joys and sorrows that we hope will bloom again. And it's a two-way street. When we light candles of joy, Chris said, we amplify the joy in the world. In a way, we are helping the lotus of life bloom outward for us to witness. Or, if we want to take Chris's metaphor of amplification of joy, we could consider that the candles of joy amplify outward, and in essence, like light getting diffuse or shared or spread, all of that gets further away from its source where it is brightest or loudest. Similarly, then, the joy that is amplified, like the lotus that bloom, goes out with a knowing that while its beauty and happiness will be experienced in the moments to come, it will in time fade or lessen in volume or brightness. In this sense, like sharing our joys, like sharing our sorrows, our joys are shared with an understanding of the cycle of life and death, joy and sorrow, happiness and suffering, and so on. But this cycle of joy and sorrow need not force us to avoid the mud and lotus alike. We need not run from joy and sorrow, from life and death, but can choose instead to embrace, like embracing one another, the fullness of life, the tenderness of death, the beauty of the flower, the messiness of the mud, the happiness of the rising sun, and the gratitude of the passing day. And together, those are all the more beautiful because we kindle, bear, and witness not alone, but together in this community of hope and courage. This community is strong enough, I promise you, is strong enough to hold it all, to embrace it all. This community is able to do that because you are here, that you chose to be here, and that together we can choose to love each other into the people we are becoming right now. And we can choose to love this world into what we know is yet still possible. May it be so, and amen.